Well, since his appointment, Sports Minister Gayton Mckenzie has brought the right of the majority to watch sport of national interest to the fore. He contends, as the debates before him have, that sport is a unifier and we are a sporting nation. A data-driven consumer analytics and a research business has conducted research that finds that 75% of South Africans are interested in sport and 25 million participate. Andrew Fulton is the director of 8020. He joins me now. A very good afternoon and welcome to Newzroom Afrika. What would you say was the most surprising thing that came out of your research?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the show. It's nice to be here. For me, it's we obviously know that we're a sports mad country, but yeah, just that 75% have an interest in sport and 25 million actually participate. I mean, that's quite a large percentage of our 43 million adult South Africans. The survey we use is the MAP survey from the MRF, which interviews 20,000 people, and it doesn't do children. So this is adult South Africans, but just how widespread interest in sport is. And then when we looked at it across the Olympic sports, how many sports there are in South Africa that have more than 1 million people who participate or are interested in them. That was the real surprise for me with the research.
And some of those sports that you guys actually looked at that people were interested in actually following, canoeing and kayaking, skateboarding and even surfing. Yeah. I mean, some of the interesting ones that had more than 1 million participants: horseback riding and show jumping, rock climbing, martial arts, and volleyball. You know, these are not sports that I think are sort of front and center in South Africa. I mean, when you think about South Africa, you think about rugby, you think about cricket, but you don't think about show jumping or rock climbing. So it was nice to see that there's a wide, long list of sports that South Africans are passionate about and enjoy playing. I suppose key is also the fact that these are adults that we're talking about. These aren't necessarily children, where it's far easier to actually participate in sport because the way that the schooling system is structured is that there's a place for physical activity. A lot of schools have it in, even those that don't necessarily have in a physical education module. There has been a lot of lobbying to try and get that right. But we're talking about a number of people that have actually chosen in their free time to actually participate in sport. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. As we said, it's adults. So these are people that are competing. You know, I don't think you really have much of a choice whether or not you play sports in South Africa as a child. I mean, there's some schools that are making it a little bit easier to not do sports, but as an adult, yeah, it's entirely choice. You can just get into your job and just let go of all your sports abilities as you age. So yeah, it is nice to know. The other thing we also found was across ages. You know, do you continue to play late into life? So when people age 50 plus, you've still 54% of South Africans participating in sport before they 50. So it's when perhaps your knees are starting to hurt a bit more. You're not in the kind of shape you were when you're 17, but they're still participating in one of these dozens of sports we looked at.
I'm not sure if your connection is fading on us. I'm going to try with our next question, and if it is, then I'm going to just have to cut our interview short, unfortunately, Andrew. But what you also did was you actually segmented it into males and females. And what was something that stood out for me is that both men and women were equally interested in watching sport.
Yeah, so we found about 75% of men and women both interested in sports. Where it does differ is participation. So we found 65% of men still participate in sports, and only 50% of women. So perhaps that's more of the responsibilities for child rearing and less time to get out there and golf, go canoeing, go for a jog.
So 28% showed interest in football. What is that local football? Watching our, would you say, Betway Premiership? Well, it will now be the Betway Premiership, but watching Kaizer Chiefs, Orlando Pirates, Morocco Swallows, our well-known South African teams, or is that football interest coming from the English Premier League and the UEFA Champions League?
We actually put that. I mean, what this is just purely the sport itself. It doesn't have which teams you support. I mean, we good question. We could look into that. But from previous work that we've done, a lot of it is definitely your local team, Pirates, your Kaizer Chiefs. But the Premier League is, as you know, with your DStv packages, it's one of the most popular things to watch on television. So there'll definitely be some international football in that metric.
Something that you didn't show was cricket on the graphic that I saw. What happened to cricket?
Well, it's not an Olympic sport. So the graph that we did was purely the Olympic sports.
Okay.
Yeah, so cricket is certainly high up there, less so than it was maybe 10 years ago. What we've noticed definitely with the captaincy of CFBC and the transformation of rugby, it has made rugby a bit more front and center. Football has always been very, very dominant, and cricket, while it used to be sort of third most popular sport, is slipping a little bit, certainly over the last 10 years from the research we did about 6 months ago.
The interest in rugby was at over 8% of your sample, but that was equatable to the interest in running, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. So as I said, we looked at the Olympic sports for this particular piece of research that we did, and we found that, I mean, there's a wide range of running, and in the MAPS data set, it puts together jogging, park running, fitness walking, trail running, and that's 1.4 million people who participate in some form of running, and then 4 million who claim to enjoy just being interested in it, whether it's watching it on TV or just an interest in the sport.
I suppose then the argument made by our sports minister that South Africa truly is a sporting nation, and it's one that we've heard many before him also say that that's the reason why we need more of a majority to actually be having access to a variety of different sports. I suppose research like this does help to back that up.
Absolutely, and I mean, I can't overemphasize the impact of what's happened with rugby. I watched rugby in this last final, and the crowd I watched it with was utterly different from when I came to this country 20 years ago. I mean, it's just such a transformation, and in the data, you know, when we look at people who express an interest in rugby, 61% are Black, which is up from 2014 when it was 52%. Colored rugby players now constitute 25% of all rugby participants compared to 11% in 2014, just 10 years ago. So you can really see in the numbers how racially, certainly rugby has transformed, and you know, what we saw on Saturday on the weekend just confirms how much that transformation has led to an incredibly dominant team and a very diverse group of people who are performing at an international level.
It's just incredible. And now we've got another installment coming this weekend in Cape Town.
We do.
Andrew Fulton is the director of 8020. Thanks so much for your time chatting to us here on Newzroom Afrika about research into the interests of South Africans, and over 75% of them interested in viewing sport.